Hey there, welcome back to Module 6 about promo sequences. And here in Lesson 5, we are diving into your sales sequence, where you're selling. This is probably the lesson you're most excited about and what you really think of when you think of a promo sequence. And so it is obviously a very important lesson, and we're going to be talking about how to get people to convert, to buy your product. Specifically in Lesson 5, you'll learn how to structure a 4-day sales sequence, how to structure a 7-day sales sequence, and how to structure a sales booster sequence. Now, this lesson is really about kind of general concepts and how we're going to structure things. In the next lesson, we'll go into the specific emails, and I'll walk you through how to structure the specific emails that we'll be talking about in this lesson. It would be too much to put that all into a single lesson, but this is about the general framework, the types of emails, and when you're going to send them. So that's what we're diving into in this lesson. Let's dive in. Now, I made this point again. When your cart opens, all your energy should go towards selling your signature product. Once you're to your sales sequence, you are no longer educating, you are no longer doing anything else. You are selling. And so that's what you'll see. All of the emails at this phase are about selling. Again, we're going to talk about content and then sequences. So we'll start with the content. What are you going to put in these emails? Well, sales emails are all about convincing people to buy the product. Now, again, I'm going to say this next thing yet again because I want to make sure it got through. The time for educating is over. Now you are 100% focused on selling. I just want you to get that through your head so that every time you're thinking about it, you are thinking about that. Now, that lesson applies to emails and everything else during your launch, but we're obviously going to focus specifically on emails here in Badass Email Marketing. So in the emails you're going to send during your sales sequence, you'll focus on the benefits for your audience, the costs of inaction, case studies, urgency, scarcity, and other conversion techniques. And you'll focus on busting objections that your audience has to buying. We'll get into the details of the different types of sales emails in the next lesson. We're going to kind of go deep on each of those different kinds, but I want you to understand that this is go deep on converting, convincing them about the benefits, about all of the reasons why they want to sign up, and why it will really transform their lives or their businesses. So that's what you're going to be doing. Now, let's talk about the sequence, and we'll talk about kind of how you're going to structure it, where you're going to send it, etc. So there are countless ways to structure a launch. So there isn't a single sequence you'll always use, and there's no way that I could have given you a sequence for every possible iteration of every possible launch because there are too many ways to do it. But what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the general framework for a sales sequence, and then walk through the most common launch methods and kind of a structure for the most common launch methods. So let's start by looking at the basic flow in the must include emails. So what we're going to talk about now very quickly is the different emails that you are going to want to include in every single sales sequence you send. So this is going to be things that these are kind of the universal emails, and then we'll talk about how to modify based on your particular kind of launch period, launch sequence, etc. So here is the general flow. When the cart opens, generally the first email you'll send is what's called a value load email. We'll talk about it more in the next lesson, but a value load is where you really kind of recap the offer. It is a long email where you're talking about all the benefits, all the things they're going to get, all the transformations. It is where you are kind of taking your sales page almost and putting it in a slightly shortened version, but really kind of digging into all the value. The next email that is kind of a must is the cost of inaction. What is them not acting costing them? What harms could they be having? What pleasure are they not having? So kind of what's the cost of inaction? From there then, so the cost of inaction is the pain. Then you go to a case study email. This is the pleasure. This is proving what can happen when they take action. And again, if you don't have a case study for your particular product yet, you're going to use case studies of people who've worked with you, who've used your method, of things like that. Then the next email that I believe is a must is a solicit questions email. It's an email where you invite people to ask you any questions they have to make sure you've answered them. Basically, make yourself available. Then the next required email is an enhanced FAQ email. This is a big, long email. This is an email for the detail buyers, where you're going to go through a ton of detail about what's going on. Now, again, if you have drafted a sales page, your sales page should probably have most of these FAQs already on it. So the email is about kind of pulling that information and putting it into your email. And we'll talk about this when we get to it in the next lesson. You're not just answering the questions. When you're answering the questions, you are doing conversion coaching at the same time in the way you answer the questions. So that's kind of the next email you're going to have. And then the final email or series of emails you'll have are cart close emails. Those are kind of a must no matter what. Those are urgency, saying cart's closing, you're not going to have access, or you're losing access to bonus. Whatever your urgency is, you're going to have emails that highlight that as part of your sequence. So these are kind of the must includes. And you can see there are 6 different categories here that you would generally include in every single launch email sequence. Now, with the basic flow in hand, you can design a sales sequence to fit your open cart period and then add optional emails to fill open spaces on the calendar. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about a couple of specific sequences, but the point is, once you fill in those kind of 6 categories of emails, you're going to look and say, okay, where do I have a spot in my calendar? And let's add another of these other kinds of conversion emails that are available to me. So something I want to make clear, during your cart open period, you should email your launch list every single day. So if you did a webinar, people who signed up for the webinar should be getting an email every single day. Now, if you have a small list and you're sending your sales email to everybody should be getting an email at least every day. And they should be getting at least one. There are some days where they're likely to be getting multiple emails on a single day. So I just want to make this point. So if you have a 7-day cart open, you have to have at least 7 emails, and you're going to have more than that. If you have a 14-day period, you're going to be sending 14 emails. So I want you to be thinking about that as you're crafting your open cart period. So now let's look at a typical webinar launch with a 7-day open cart period. And again, we use this. I kind of showed you in the invite sequence a Wednesday webinar. And so we're going to keep that going. Once that happens, here would be the structure that I would suggest to you for your launch emails. So if the webinar is on Wednesday night, you will send a replay email. We'll cover this in the next lesson. This is one of the places where you will segment your list. People who attended the webinar will get one email. People who did not attend the webinar will get a different email. But that's on the night of the webinar. Then on the next day, Thursday, in the morning, you will send out your value load email. Then I put in the evening, assuming you have a first day bonus where people only get this bonus if they sign up on Thursday, you're going to send an email that evening telling them time is running out for them to get their hands on that expiring bonus. So that's Thursday. Then Friday, I suggest a cost of the alternative. And this is not a cost of inaction. This is what is another way they could solve this problem that's much more expensive. We'll talk about this later, but I have a classic email in my sequence that goes out for my template library when I was launching it that talked about, do you want to send me and my family on a European vacation, pointing out that to hire me to write your contracts from scratch, if you wanted me to do that, you would be sending me and my family on a European vacation, or you can buy my template library for $9.97. So again, you can see you're anchoring a much higher cost and saying, here's your alternative. So that's a good way, a good sales technique. Then on Saturday, you send the cost of inaction and the case study emails. We already talked about this. The great thing about this is in the morning you give them the hell, and then in the afternoon or the evening you give them the heaven. So you kind of take them to the bottom and then to the top all in one email. Then moving to Sunday, if you have testimonials in addition to case studies, you can send those as well. Also, here is a great thing to do. This is one of those periods where I said there is a specific email that you send to your most engaged people. At about noon on Sunday, I would suggest sending an email just to people who have visited the sales page but not bought, that invites them to ask you questions. And especially if you have it timed this way and it's on a Sunday, you can say, look, I'm sitting around my house on this lazy Sunday doing and whatever you would be doing that day, and say, if you've got any questions, hit reply. I'm here to answer them. I would like to do it. So you're sending this just to those people, and you tell them that you noticed that they visited the sales page but didn't buy. You are very explicit about it, so they know that you're there just talking to them. Now, then you'll also see I have an optional email there. Some people in a launch mechanism decide they don't have a payment plan, or they have only a very short payment plan announced on the webinar, like they would have a single pay and a 3-pay announced on the webinar. And then somewhere where in the middle of the cart open period, they will add a 12-month payment plan. If you're going to do that, generally announcing that on Sunday with a Tuesday cart close is a great way to go, because that gives people enough time to digest that they're having that. So if that's part of your launch plan, you're going to add another email on that Sunday. Then on Monday morning is the text me question. This is kind of the inviting them to ask you questions. And we'll talk about this in the next lesson. I find that doing this and giving a phone number where they can send a text message is more effective than saying hit reply. And we can talk about how to do this. I use an app called Sideline. It's an app on my phone, so I have a number that all the texts go to that number, but it's not my standard phone number. So you can do that, and it creates this real sense of connection, because people are feeling like, oh, wow, Bobby is accessible. This is cool. So the mere fact of sending that email, even if people don't text you, has an effect. People who do text me, in my case, I found that 75 to 80% of the people who actually take me up on that and text ultimately convert. It's a powerful email. You want to use it in your sequence. And then that evening you send your enhanced FAQ. This is where you really kind of dig in and give the details to the detail buyers. And then on cart close day, I'm going to suggest to you need to send at least 3 cart close emails. One in the morning, kind of first thing in the morning, 8 or 9 a.m. One is, kind of early afternoon. That's cart close email number 2. One of them is in the evening. I would normally send that about 3 hours before cart close. And then some people will add an optional, you got 1 hour left. Again, if you want to do that, feel free. And if you're going to do that, that's 4 emails. So this is the structure if you want to go with a 7-day open cart using what I would suggest for your 7-day open cart. Now, you can see that with a 7-day cart open period, you send a lot more emails than just kind of the 6 must send. And the reason for that is you have a lot of open periods. And again, remember one of our mantras, one of our rules is when in doubt, send another email, because they tend to be effective. And you're giving people the option to opt out, so don't feel bad about it. You should be aggressive and send those emails, because they will get conversions. They will make you money. Now that we've looked at the 7-day cart open, let's look at a typical kind of video series. This is the other way. Like people who do a 3-part video series will tend to have a 4-day cart open period that starts on a Monday. So it's a Monday to Thursday, much more condensed period. I'm going to go over kind of what you're going to do in this cart open period now. So here is the basic framework. On Monday morning, you do a value load email. Now, because it's not a webinar, you're not doing a replay. You don't have a replay email. You go straight to the value load email. Then in the evening, you will have a first day bonus expiring email. And in this structure with a video series, almost everyone is going to suggest you have a first day bonus. So that is not really optional. It's going to be something you're going to send every day. So those are 2 emails you're sending on Monday. Then you'll see on Tuesday, it's like the Saturday from the 7-day sequence. We do the cost of inaction and the case study. Again, give them the give them the hell and or the pain and then the pleasure. Now, what I want to say is another thing for you to understand, if you have bonuses that are expiring every day, if you're announcing new bonuses, you're going to add those emails in as well. But this is kind of the basic structure that you're going to build things around. So if you are going to add a bonus that's only good on the second day, you have to announce that and address it in an email on that Tuesday as well. Then on Wednesday, you're going to have the text me questions email that we already talked about. This is where if you're introducing your optional payment plan, you're going to announce it on that Wednesday. That's the traditional thing that people do. And your enhanced FAQ goes out that night. So you'll kind of see there is a bit of congruence between the different methods. Kind of your Wednesday in a 4-day sequence is very much like your Monday in kind of the day before cart close, except this is when you would put the payment plan in. And then on cart close day, you're going to have, again, on Thursday, at least 3 cart close emails and potentially a 4th if you want to. So this is the basic structure. Now, again, depending on what you have, if you have live things, if you have other things happening during this period, you're going to add to it. But these are the basic kind of what you're going to build your sequence around. So if you're doing this, you need to be looking at this kind of email structure and writing all of these emails. So what you'll see, though, is with the shorter open cart period, you have to pick and choose the extra emails that you're going to add, like you didn't add the costs of the alternatives, because there simply isn't room to add all of those in. Now, what I do want to say, though, is, and I'm going to go back for a second, you could, on the first day bonus expiring, you could, in fact, add the cost of the alternatives if you wanted to. You have some flexibility to do things like that, but you see, you just don't have as much time because you have 3 fewer days to actually send emails. So that's the point I wanted to make. Now, if you're sending all the emails to your entire list, if you aren't sending all of your emails to your entire list, you're also going to want to create a sales booster sequence for people who didn't sign up, like we talked about in the 4 sequences back in lesson 2 here. And I want to stress, don't skip or discount the sales booster sequence, because 50% or more of my sales come from people who did not register for the webinar. Think about that for a second. 50% of more of my sales come from people who did not register for the webinar. And I'm talking about when I've done a webinar launch. So you need to make sure that you are giving those people a chance to buy. So if you're going to go with a sales booster sequence, you'll include the value load, a case study email, the enhanced FAQ, and at least 1 cart close email. So that's kind of the 4 emails that you're going to include in the sales booster sequence. So value load, case study, enhanced FAQ, and 1 cart close email. This is kind of the bare minimum where it's speaking to the different kinds of buyers, and you're giving them the details, you're giving them the information they need, and so you are kind of helping to coach them on the conversion. So that's generally how you could go about it. Now, the email only launch, I want to talk about this briefly. You can adapt either the 7-day or the 4-day cart open sequences for an email only launch. Just obviously remove the replay emails from the 7-day sequence. My non-launch launch email structure for my template library very much mimics the 7-day open cart sequence that we just went over. It just doesn't have a replay and doesn't refer to a webinar or anything like that. It's just starting with the value load and going from that point forward. So this is how you do if you want to just send emails for your signature product. That's what you're going to do. So the key lesson takeaway is to be intentional about your sales sequence, because your follow-up emails are where you will make your money in your launches. Now, in this lesson, we went quickly over the types of emails. And if you're wondering, wait a minute, help me, I don't understand how to write all those and what to include, don't worry. That's what we're covering in the next lesson. So in the next lesson, you'll learn how to write each of the must-have sales emails, how to write the additional add-on emails, and how to craft compelling copy. We're going to go through examples of these different emails so that you can see how it's done, what you're doing in each one, what to include, and then you'll get the swipe so that you can really start digging in and writing your version for your launch. So I'll see you in the next lesson.